Hello, welcome to Global Eye. 2023 was a historic year for India-US relations. Prime Minister Modi had at least 5 interactions with President Biden, and the highlight of the year was the Prime Minister's visit to the United States. The Prime Minister had a detailed bilateral meeting with President Biden, addressed a joint meeting of the US Congress, and interacted with business leaders. The US approved a path-breaking deal between GE and India's HAL for co-production of F414 engines in India. These would power India's fighter jets in the future. US chip maker Micron also announced its plans to set up a semiconductor plant in India. Both nations launched an innovation handshake to further collaboration on critical and emerging technology. India has decided to procure MQ-9B Sea Guardian drones from General Atomics and also announced a ship repair agreement. To talk about the momentum in India-US ties and what to expect from the business and economic partnership between the two countries is USISPF Chairman John Chambers, who is extremely bullish on India. You wrote a long LinkedIn post recently about your top predictions for 2024. You had predictions for India, which has the potential to become the manufacturing powerhouse of the world, and also recommendations and predictions on the biggest disruptions of 2024. Let me begin by asking you about the US-India partnership. There has been great momentum over the years. If there were areas that you would look out for in 2024, big themes that you would see the two countries build on, what would those be for next year?
Well, Parikshit, it's a pleasure to be with you today, and I enjoy doing this with CNBC each year in terms of the opportunities to see the future. Just for your viewers, quick credibility, and literally 2020 and in January, we said there were issues coming out of China with a flu-like challenge that we felt would have an economic impact not only in Southeast Asia, but around the world. Unfortunately, that turned out to be COVID. In 2021, we said even with the issues of COVID, it will be an okay economic year, obviously very challenging from the human suffering that occurred, and that turned to be accurate. Then in 2022, we said the issue would shift from COVID to inflation for the global economy, and that you would see a slowing, and that you would see an emergence of AI as the largest technology change in total for the market. And then as we move forward in 23, it was an agility issue. This year, it's going to be all about AI, and it's going to be about how AI will be the most ground-changing technology ever in history, the equivalent of the internet and the cloud combined, and that India and the U.S. working close together can lead this on a global basis to the benefit not just of businesses in both countries, but to every citizen in both countries, and be a model for the rest of the world. So extremely bullish on what the opportunity is here. And as I've said many times before recently, including in front of Prime Minister Modi in his state visit to the U.S. in the summer when I introduced him to the business community, India will become the #1 economy in the world. Something people had not focused on before. It's inevitable if you look at what is going on mathematically with the current momentum.
Right. You're saying that India will become the #1 economy in the world. I'd like to ask you about areas where you feel US businesses are going to invest more in India. Do you see a growth in US FDI, US investments going into the Indian manufacturing sector, the Indian startup sector in 2024?
The answer is absolutely yes. And this might have been a point when we had founded U.S.-India Strategic Partnership Forum 7 years ago, and we said this would be the most strategic relationship between any two countries. And even some of our members were hesitant about, will this be as big as we think and as transformational? Prime Minister Modi got it. He understood the opportunity there. And what you see is a tremendous confidence by members of the U.S.-India Strategic Partnership Forum, the biggest companies in America and the biggest companies in India working together toward a common goal. The other day, we asked our membership, just for show of hands during one of our board meetings, how many of you are increasing your investment in India? Almost unanimous across the board. The trust and confidence in India is unequaled. I've never seen it stronger in my lifetime. India's moved from a view of a slow follower to a very, very fast strategic partner as you move forward. To your specific areas of investment, I think will be across the board. If you watch the importance of manufacturing in India, a digital India, that's such a key objective, especially given the concerns that many companies have about manufacturing in China. Good progress on that. Would like to see it go even faster. AI India, whether you call it, as Prime Minister Modi said, America and India, or really the next generation technology, by working together, we can lead this on a global basis, both at the big company level, also at the startup level, and bring the benefits to everyone in society as this transforms our economies and standard of living in a very positive area. But it goes everywhere. It's how can the startups really make a difference? Two of my hottest startups, I have 9 unicorns, out of 20 of my investments, and I'm a small venture capitalist strategic coach, if you will, but a pretty good track record there. Unifor is doing the best job maybe in the world on AI technology for business to business and crossed the 100 million ARR rate with tremendous speed here recently. If you watch what Umesh is doing as the CEO, it was a company that I invested in the very early stage in India when I met him at an MIT conference in India as one of the hot startups. And then Saket Modi, no relationship to the Prime Minister, in the area of cybersecurity and cyber risk analysis, another really hot startup that is occurring. So hot areas for technology, clearly the continued expansion of cloud, but that's really the last generation. It's now about AI will be the technology, and this will be the decade of AI for the next 10 years plus. I would argue it will be the decade for India in total for the next 10 years plus. And then cybersecurity gets really exciting with areas such as deepfake, risk analysis, cyber insurance, and the hacks that will inevitably occur in many businesses.
Right. Just to ask you about AI specifically, because you had said that this will be the biggest disruptor. We will see the decade of AI beginning next year. What is the one issue that India needs to leverage if it wants to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to artificial intelligence, according to you?
If I may take a little bit of liberty and say the two issues. The first issue is India is a tremendous resource of young people who are very optimistic, average age of under 26 or under, speaks to a generation and generation of new job creators, innovators, et cetera, in a market where India's population will go from 1.4 billion to 2 billion. At the time, China's population goes from 1.3 to 800 million. The math, I think all of us can get on that. But it is the sense of confidence in the training. The IITs and others are turning out almost 1 million engineers a year in terms of young people who really want to participate in this transition for it. And then the second thing that I think India does so well, it plans out and dreams what's possible. It sets audacious goals. It has the courage to track those through, and it has the courage also to do it in ways that others have not done it, such as the strategic partnership between the U.S. and India. And something we said in USISPF literally 7 years ago when we were founded, it will not only become the most strategic relationship in the world between two countries, it will become the model for the rest of the world with major economic benefit to every citizen, every country. Many people thought that was a dream too far. It's turned out to be very accurate. Hopefully, you will see the same type of predictions we're making today carry forward. If you agree with everything I say, I probably have not challenged myself or you far enough, but I think many of these things are inevitable if we execute right.
Right. If I were to ask you about your statement on India becoming the manufacturing powerhouse, the #1 economy in the world, if there were certain issues holding India back right now, what would those be?
I think the #1 issue, and we've made great progress in it, but still have a ways to go, is to make it seamless as you go from state to state, to make it easy to move products around within the country, because most of supply chains are multiple states. If you look in the U.S. or you look in China or you look in Europe, it goes across multiple geographies. The more seamless you can make on that, it becomes very key. And then you've got to have a very clear goal. As we manufacture in India, we've got to be cost-wise very competitive with the rest of the world to achieve that opportunity. I remember being on stage with Prime Minister Modi when he introduced, and Ahmad Khan was there as well, the digital India for manufacturing. And it was a vision then, but if you watch the progress, we made progress every year toward that end goal. So I think it's continuing to make it easier to do business. It's attracting the direct investments with semiconductor companies, which we're making good progress on, and other companies such as GE that are investing in India with their aircraft engines, et cetera. So I'd give us good progress, but still a ways to go there. It is so critical for the average Indian to know that they don't have to be an engineer to really participate in this new economy. You can work in manufacturing, you can work in healthcare, you can work in government. And that's what I like about a Digital India program.
On that note, we take a short break, but this interview with John Chambers continues on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You are watching Global Eye. US emerged as India's largest trading partner in FY23. How is India poised to grow as an alternative to China? And what are the sectors in India that American investors would be most excited about? Let's continue this conversation with John Chambers, chairman of USISPF. The US-China rivalry, how do you see that playing out? Number one. And secondly, if India has to rise as an alternative to China, what does it need to do? What are some of the areas that it needs to work on immediately to leverage this opportunity? Because as many say, this China plus one window is not going to exist forever.
So 4 questions, if I counted them right. Let me try to take them in sequence. Giving your viewership a little bit of background, I was one of the first American business leaders to bet big time on China. When I was with Wang Laboratories, Dr. N. Wang's operation of mini computers during the mid-'80s, I did the first joint venture in China, became very comfortable in that marketplace. Dr. Wang was Jiang Zemin's classmate, the prior president in China, and I got to know him very well over the years. Then when I became CEO of Cisco, right as I became CEO, I made a huge bet on China at being an outsourcing opportunity way before other people saw it for high-end technology. And we brought manufacturing into China in a real win-win relationship, a huge advantage for me in terms of our company and direction. And candidly, the Chinese leadership, both business and government, delivered on almost all commitments that occurred. Lately, that relationship has come under tremendous strain. India has taken almost the position of China in terms of being the easiest partner to do business with, and that we'll come back to in a second. But China has lost trust, more of a win-lose relationship with many American companies and American business. And so you see a hesitance and a concern having your supply chain tied to that in ways that we have in the past. A currency of a country or leader is very simple. It is basically their track record, the relationships they develop, and trust. And that's something I think India is doing very well. I think India will become the #1 manufacturing location in the world for the reasons we covered earlier. It will take more time in terms of making it happen, but I think things are headed the right way. The only wish I have is we move faster and knock the hurdles out of the way that are slowing us down toward achieving that goal. But the opportunity's there. I'd be both surprised and disappointed if India does not rise to that opportunity.
Right. Your advice to startups in 2024, especially Indian startups, looking at the global economic environment right now?
My advice is that the right time to start a startup is often when there's been an economic slowdown or a slowdown in capital. And clearly that's what has occurred in the last 2 to 3 years. Just for your viewership, in 2021, there were 10 times the number of unicorns created that there were in this last year, and about 8 times the number of decacorns created. So you've seen a slowdown in the startup community with funding, which, by the way, we covered in a session with you all 2 years ago, saying this was going to happen. Now's the time when you haven't got too many investments going at one time. It's a higher probability of somebody breaking away if there's less funding available, even though that seems counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true from a venture capitalist perspective. So I'd say my advice is dream, have a chance to go for it. India used to be a place where you had great leverage with very, very talented, smart engineers and candidly a great business partner in government that was looking after the whole country. I think India now is becoming an innovation engine, a dreamer, the capability of making things happen that other countries have not. So I would say go for it. Have the courage to make 2024 your year as a startup. Have the courage to make this the decade for India, just like we say this next decade for AI. I think they actually can go in parallel. And you combine that with the strategic partnership with the U.S., you have three things going on that is very unique to India that doesn't exist in other parts of the world. So I think unless we misexecute, the next decade and actually the next 3 decades looks extremely good for India. I think you're blessed with an amazing leader in Modi. His approval rating 76, 77%. I wish we had one American politician who was over 50%. So it's a country I believe in, a citizen group that is hugely, I think, a nation of people that can make things happen, a nation of dreamers, but can turn dreams into hopes, into results.
Right. Any 3 sectors which you feel will drive the growth of the Indian economy over the next decade?
Okay. Let me take a guess. I haven't had it asked exactly that way, so give me just a second to think about it. What I'm doing is I'm going to distract you for a second in your audience while I figure out what are the 3 things I want to say. If I may break it into 2 groups. First, the 3 sectors in technology that will really, really make a difference for India's future, and important that India lead and partner in those 3 sections. Number 1 is AI. It will be about the decade of AI, and perhaps even the century of AI in terms of its impact on the world. The second issue is the cloud and the cloud moving to the edge. I know that you all have had a number of sessions recently talking about the booming of the cloud marketplace in India and what does it really mean. I think that's really important for India to become one of the 2 or 3 leaders in cloud on a global basis in terms of the direction for it. And the third technology area is cybersecurity, whether it's as simple as how do you do risk analysis with companies like Safe, that's one of my startups, or how do you do deepfake analysis where people emulate your voice or even your video capability. That's going to be probably the most nuanced area of cybersecurity in the market. Companies like Pindrop that can very quickly determine that that was a machine or that was somebody else using your recording your voice are the 3 areas of technology. For business and for government, I think the most important one is the manufacturing sector to become a digital powerhouse as you move into the AI decade. So manufacturing would be number 1. Number 2, I would say the importance of healthcare for all the citizens across the country, very inclusive across all 29 states and the 7 territories as you move forward in terms of the direction. And if I had to pick a third outside of technology, which made a second standalone, I think the importance that agriculture plays to the country is so important with the inclusive and a large part of the GDP, but job creation within it. Now, what am I most excited about out of all I said in that category? The startups. Startups in every industry, people dreaming, excited about being part of that, and the education system, which is preparing the young people for the future.
Right. And finally, Mr. Chambers, it's been wonderful talking to you, but if I were to ask you about one recommendation that you would love to leave Indians with, the Indian audience with, for 2024, what would that thought be?
Well, Parikshit, my first request is please call me John. It's an honor. We're all equal in life, and I'm trying not to appear formal or older, just more experience. To your question directly, I think India should own this next century. I think India has a chance to lead not just in AI for the next decade, but become the largest economy in the world and execute in a way that allows that to occur. I think this is the time that people in India and candidly in the U.S. with a partnership with India, we have to dream bigger. We have to have the courage to dream and do things that other people haven't done before. And that's what leadership's about. Then you have to turn dreams into hope and say it's possible. And then you've got to publicize the results. And then you've got to have the courage to accelerate through it and enjoy the moment.
All right.
So I want to wish all my friends in India a happy new year, a great holiday season. It's been an honor and will continue to be an honor to be the biggest bull on India, your biggest backer around the world. And it truly is something that I'm very happy to play a small role in.
All right. John Chambers, thank you very much for speaking to CNBC-TV18, giving us your top predictions for India and the hurdles that India really needs to knock out of the way if it has to become the manufacturing powerhouse of the world and a leading economy as well. Thank you once again for being with us here on CNBC and Global Eye. All right, that's all we have time for. Thank you for watching and goodbye.